This is Nicole John in Jerusalem, and it looks like we are in for the long haul here. Today is October 11th, Wednesday, and this is the fifth day of the Israel-Hamas war, which started on Saturday. There is still continued fighting in communities in Israel, nonstop bombing of Gaza, continued rockets launched at Israel from Gaza. No ground war yet, but just now, a massive barrage of rockets from the north, from Lebanon, were fired into Israel. So we were led to believe by the media that a ground war was going to begin on Tuesday night. There were more than 300,000 Israeli reserve soldiers called up, and they were waiting orders. But the army and security forces are still dealing with evacuating towns in the south around the Gaza border and investigating the atrocities and the depths of horror and destruction that took place at those communities, including the deaths of babies, toddlers, women, men, teenagers, elderly, Holocaust survivors, you name it. The magnitude of the attack included RPG launchers, arson, automatic weapons, and it's all just being revealed now. There's also footage coming out now from security cameras that were at these communities. In one community called barrage, more than 100 bodies were discovered, and they're still cleaning up in there. The first news we got, if you recall, that Hamas had taken captives into Gaza, of which they have between 130 to 150. We found out by their own videos, which were circulated first in their social media channels and then beyond. And that's where many people found out about their loved ones getting kidnapped and taken into Gaza. There's still people missing, but they have not found either body or evidence that they have been taken. Some reports have it that the 1,500 terrorists entered Israel. And if you want to know more about that, I discussed it in previous videos about like how they broke through the fence. There's still an unknown number on the loose. I'm not sure if there's a number at how many have been captured or killed. There is still, up until now, sporadic fighting taking place in residential areas. In fact, as I was thinking about what to say and how to update, there were alerts coming in for people in certain communities to, in a major city, to get in their houses. Now, of course, a lot of these might turn out to be false alarms, but there have been also non-false alarms that have resulted in shootouts on the streets. We don't know how many are still around or where they are within Israel proper. Now, not to mention the rockets are still going nonstop in the south. There was a huge barrage at the center at Tel Aviv area. There's pretty much constant, almost all day, going around the Gaza periphery, but there was a barrage at Tel Aviv as well this afternoon. Of course, also in Gaza, they're experiencing nonstop Israeli bombing since Sunday. There are buildings that are just flattened. There's tens of thousands of displaced people. And we have to remember, Palestinian does not equal Hamas. Hamas is the terrorist organization that is intent on the destruction of Israel. And they're the ones who carried out this attack. They have been, Prime Minister Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, equated Hamas with ISIS in this case for the atrocities that were committed against civilians, unarmed, innocent civilians sleeping in their homes. But we have to remember the Palestinians right now in Gaza, 2 million of them are suffering, not just have been suffering under the hardline Islamic terror group, which has been in control of the Strip for well over a decade now, but also under a total blockade that Israel has placed now on the Gaza Strip. There has been no food, water, or fuel going into Gaza, and the electric supply has run out. So doctors can't perform surgeries. There's no internet or hard to access. They're actually, I saw pictures of people charging their phones on car batteries. But when the dust settles, we're going to find a massive humanitarian crisis there as well. But what of the hostages from Israel? Where are they? Are they also being affected by this? We have no idea. I mean, maybe Israel now does have an idea, but I haven't heard anything about that. Among the hostages, including, among them, there are Israelis, but there's also American citizens. There's Italians, there's British, 14 Thai workers. They came here to work and they worked on one of the farms in the South. There's other nationalities, and all of these people are also among the dead. So what's interesting, what I find, one of the interesting aspects that I do find of this particular war is the approach by the international media. This might be the first time I remember in covering all the conflicts here that Israel is actually ahead in the information warfare. Israel made sure to bring in the foreign press first to the carnage sites down south before they took the local media. So if you're watching CNN or Sky or Fox, they're all broadcasting the carnage that they saw, the atrocities, the burnt houses, the cars riddled with bullets. They saw, I don't know if they saw also bodies. They interviewed one Israeli general who said he counted 40 dead babies. So this is what they're reporting, and they're constantly interviewing Israeli victims, people who have lost loved ones, who their entire families were killed or abducted. And so this has been going nonstop. So there is some media, including Al Jazeera, which is pleading the Palestinian case. And there's also reports in Israel that the Minister of Communications wants to shut down Al Jazeera from reporting from the region so that they cannot get out any information. So we'll see where that goes. What I do find missing are more stories about the military and or intelligence failure that allowed such an attack. Now, I cannot believe people aren't asking more questions about how the most high-tech country that can catch you on camera at a stoplight. I mean, we don't even have to put our parking tickets into the machine when we exit. Like, there's a system that matches your license plate to your ticket, and you pay the ticket inside, and then when you're driving out, the gate just opens for you. And it's a very high-tech country, but somehow their very high-tech security fence was breached by what we had assumed was a low-tech, disorganized, not military group, but militia type group. So this remains to be seen. Of course, there are some reports that they got funding from Iran or help planning from Iran. So now on the political side of things, there's been some developments. Israel has agreed to form an emergency government. Now, what does that mean? In this case, the leaders of the National Unity Party, which it had been in the opposition, has agreed to join Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition. So this is Benny Gantz is the leader, and he and some of his party members will be sworn in as ministers during the duration of the war. So in addition to obviously like showing unity, showing a stronger government, right now Netanyahu has a majority, but just by a couple of seats. But this will give him a solid majority in the government. And also the other advantage for Israel is that Gantz and his second in command, Gadi Eisenkot are generals in the army. They had been generals and they have some serious military experience. So that's something that wasn't exactly prevalent in Netanyahu's coalition until now. In fact, several of the major ministers from his parties in his coalition, not from his party, but from the other parties in his coalition, have zero military experience. Actually, what they're more concerned about, many of them, and this is what the left wing blames Netanyahu for weakening the Israeli government by bringing these types of parties into his government, because for the ultra-Orthodox parties are mainly interested in actually that their followers don't have to serve in the army, which is mandatory for most people. So they want them to be able to study in yeshivas and to study Torah rather than serve in the army. So that's two major parties in his coalition. And the other conglomeration of parties in his coalition are more interested in the expansion of Israeli settlements in the West Bank, and also in strengthening the Jewish character of the nation. And this has been in a religious way, in their specific religious way. So that has been where the government has been going, in different religious interests, rather than, this is what the left is saying, this is what the opposition is saying, that the country had been going in that direction rather than strengthening defense. So that this is, there's not a lot of political bickering right now because the horror is so profound and people are in shock. However, there is a little bit of this in the background that the people are saying, that people, when you chat with them on the street or you talk about what they think about what's going on, this is their accusation. Now, on the other hand, the right wing is blaming the left for, and I hate to use right and left when it comes to Israel because it's not quite like that, but for brevity's sake, let's just say the current government is blaming the opposition, could be somewhat related to right and left, for all of the protests. Weekly protests had been going on for, I lost track, it's probably over 30 weeks now, since January. Weekly protests against proposed judicial reform, which is what Netanyahu's coalition wanted to bring in. They wanted to change the whole structure of the judicial system here. And there are many opponents to that, conducting weekly protests that had been drawing over 100,000 people to Tel Aviv every week, and several thousand more elsewhere to other protest sites. And this also included strikes, including strikes by some branches of the military or military reserves, not the current military, it was not affected, but reservists and other and certain units, special units, had threatened to strike because of their opposition to this judicial reform. So the quote right wing blames them for weakening the unity of Israel and for letting the guard down. So that is that's what is going back and forth right now in Israel. So aside from politics, there was also, if we look back in retrospect, for about a week or 2 weeks leading up to this war, which started on Saturday, there had been protests by Palestinians at the border with Gaza. They had gone right up to the fence and they had clashes with the military, with the Israeli military, and that had been going on. And you may not have heard about it in the international media because it was localized and contained, and it didn't seem to have any serious consequences beyond the events itself of those few days. But now speculation is, was there any attempt at that time to surveil or to plant weapons or charges or something like that. So that's an aside. Anyway, these are things that we're not going to know until the dust settles, which could be a long time. So look, we're in for the long haul. Hospitals in the north of Israel are starting to move patients underground. They have underground facilities for times like this. There have been, I did describe the pot of water boiling, and every day it's gone up to high, and there's been a infiltration or a rocket or a few, and then somebody turned the fire down and went back down, and it looked like they're not going to get involved. Hezbollah is not going to get involved. And I need to remind you, when we talk about Lebanon and Syria, we're not necessarily talking about the governments. When I say a rocket came from Lebanon, it doesn't mean that the Lebanese military or the Lebanese government has declared war on Israel. Granted, Israel and Lebanon do not have diplomatic ties. They have no relations. And Israel and, my friend's in her safe room right now. And Haifa. Whoa, okay. This happens all day long. Message, millions of messages. Israel does not have diplomatic relations at all with Lebanon and Syria. However, what they would be at war with are the Iranian proxy groups, Hezbollah in Lebanon and several in Syria. Now, in addition, there are also Palestinian factions in Lebanon that may want to get involved because of what's happening in Gaza right now. So I also there's Yemen. Yemen has also threatened to get involved. Yemen has the Houthi rebels, which are also backed by Iran. So if this is truly an Iranian inspired event, they might also get involved. So I'm going to wrap this up for now because the news is coming in nonstop. And as soon as I publish this, it's old news. But it does bring you up to date from the last 24 hours and what happened. I have other videos I'm going to post of kind of like life in this like atmosphere of war that's not really war here in Jerusalem. I have to say, everybody, thank you, by the way, for asking how we are. I mean, we're sitting here in Jerusalem like almost as if nothing's happening, except we know that something's happening and everybody's on alert, and also everything's closed. So when the stores are closed, when the schools are closed, you do have a disruption, but we're just thankful that that's all at the moment. So I'm going to post some of other videos, like the disruption included somebody saying, I'm going to have a basketball clinic today because the kids are probably bored, and that was amazing. So we'll you check back for that video as well, and just to see what's going on here. So all right, well, I'm going to go back to the news, to my vigil in front of the news and everything, and see how my friends are in the shelters, and just pray for the peace of Jerusalem, etc., all the way to southern Lebanon and all the way down to Gaza. All right, over now for now.